Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video of the Dungeon Guide series. Now, as requested in my first Streets video, we're going to be doing Sanguine Depths today. Now, this is arguably one of, if not the hardest dungeon out there in terms of scaling and how bad these mobs are, especially for tanks when you get to a higher level. The bosses are extremely difficult at high tyrannicals, and the mobs just... sentinels and researchers just are not fun at all in high fortified. So this is a requested video from my viewers as well as commenters in my YouTube. We're going to go ahead and have a look. Today we're going to be looking at a 21 done on my DK once again, and we'll just go through the basics and see how we go. But the main thing you need to know about Sanguine Depths is urn or lantern usage. It is the bread and butter of Sanguine. If you want a good run and a clean run, you need to make sure that your lantern usage is on point. Seeing as how getting full stacks gives you an extra 50% healing and damage for a solid 45 seconds to a minute? A minute, I'm pretty sure it's a minute. It's a long time. It really clears through things a lot quicker than if you don't have it and if you screw it up. So over here is going to be a route that will almost guarantee that you will get a lust on every boss, as well as getting your urn stacks to refresh via each urn, going ahead into the second boss area, which is pretty much the hardest room. That area has a lot of bad mobs in there that you want to take down pretty quickly. Pretty sure we start off with a tyrannical, so we're just gonna start off here and we'll have a look. So it is a 21. It is a tyrannical, so we should be lusting on every boss. Now, usually in most routes you won't have lust for the third boss, seeing as you lust the second boss and then go straight to the third boss. But with this route, I will show you how to actually get lust for everything. It should be okay for here. So with the 21, we're going to start off, grab the first mobs here. Now, you've got two main mobs that you need to watch out for, skirmishers and huntmasters over in this pack. Now, as you can see, I'm about to pull the left mob here. Little tip, this pack is not all linked together. If you pull the leftmost mob, it will not pull the right huntmaster, and if you pull the rightmost huntmaster, it will not pull the left. Try not to pull directly in the middle. What this is going to do is alleviate a lot of pressure from all the rest of the party, because there's not going to be that many traps on the ground, because huntmasters are the ones that put traps down. Mist dancers are the ones that do the frontal, just like in Halls of Atonement, that you need to dodge. So, as you can see, I'm going to be going on the left. We're going to be grabbing Woe here. Now, it is an inspired week, so because it's tyrannical and these mobs are not going to do much damage, we're just going to grab Woe and just let it go off, because the inspired will negate the cast, and well, you won't be able to interrupt the Woe cast, so the damage is just going to go off. We're going to be fine. So we want to make sure we pull the left mob. As you can see, the right huntmaster won't get pulled. Now, important here for tanks, you need to stay close to the left side of the wall, and you need to be facing those frontals against the wall, so all the melee and the range can stay on the right side and not have to dodge and bulb and weave between attacks. It's your job, tanks, to make sure that that ability is faced away from everyone else. Not one else's job, that's yours. So you got to make sure that works. And as you can see, I'm slowly just kiting back to remove myself from any traps. Now, if I do see a trap that's in the middle somewhere that I need to soak, I'll just AMS it, like I did previously just then, and that will negate the trap. So as you can see, the frontals are going against the wall, everything's getting there. I soaked that real quick. We're going to have a full 10 stacks. So the cage is still active for another 36 seconds. Plenty of time for us to get all 10 stacks. We're at 9 right now. The last Mist Dancer, that one's facing the side a little bit, but it's only 1, so it's whatever. It's only a 21, sorry. So that's not good for a higher key, but just for now, it's quite okay. So now we go into here. Now, this pack on Inspiring, if you're on Fortified and you're on a high-ish key, you might want to CC the Inspired mobs, but regardless, if it's a tyrannical and you can nuke it down pretty quickly, you're okay to keep going like this as long as you have the DPS for it. Now we're going to get here, and these ticks are extremely important. They have the same ability as the boss that's coming up, which is going to be Kryxis. So they're going to do a channeled cast, which you need to interrupt. The longer it is channeled, the more stacks they're going to gain. And by the time they die, they will explode for X amount of damage depending on how many stacks they have. If they have full stacks, they're almost going to one-shot your entire party. So you need to make sure that these are interrupted. So make sure this inspiring mob dies. Now remember, this is very specific to inspiring week, and most people kind of sway away from inspiring week, especially on some dungeons. Some dungeons are okay, but most of them are a little bit annoying because it's just inspiring just slows down the key. You have to CC, you have to focus it, you have to move it away from mobs. It slows everything down instead of being able to pull everything together. So we're going to get the as soon as comes in, I'm going to run into the next pack. I'm just going to keep slapping. Standard stuff here. We're going to skip ahead a little bit. So everything's going to die. We're going to have the Brute. Now, at this point, I can just pull the Brute into the boss, and we can just lust and cleave it down. But I just want to make sure everyone's cooldowns are coming back up before I go full send. We're going to lust here, and we're going to grab again. Now, small tip for this is making sure that you can actually time the death of at the same time as the first orbs come out. Just so can actually do all the healing, and the healer doesn't have to do anything to get the group back to full. Now, the only abilities that this boss has is the Hungering Drain, which I interrupt just then. And you need to make sure you're interrupting that immediately, otherwise the stacks that I mentioned before will creep up, and he will just do a lot more damage on whatever he's doing. Now you've got the Slam there, which drops an orb under everyone. Range DPS should be running very far away, and melee DPS should be running relatively far away, but close enough they can come back and get back onto the boss. And the tank should be soaking theirs immediately. Now the healer will delegate who soaks what and when to soak. Don't soak all of them immediately, you will just one-shot the group. They do an AoE burst of damage every single time one gets popped. So just be careful and be wary of what's going on, and be careful of your positioning as well, because there are instances where if you're right behind or in front of someone when the orbs start spawn, you do get knocked back into someone else's orb, and then everything goes downhill from there. As you saw before as well, he does a charge. He will target a player, and you need to be behind the rest of the group, and the group needs to be in a straight line between you, the target, and the boss. And the more targets in between, the less damage you will take at the end. Now, as you can see, our Hunter has it, but we want to minimize any more damage coming out. So they will go to the side, everyone else will move out of the way, and they will pop an immunity. At this point, it'll be Turtle that a Hunter has. They'll pop a Turtle, they'll remove the Turtle, they'll go back into doing damage. Very simple stuff. Alright? Rinse, repeat, boss is very easy, everyone understands the boss. Now, we're going to go through, boss is down, the next pull. Now this next pull you can do one of two ways. You've got the first way, which is running in, going all the way to the Sentinel, and then pulling everything back into this doorway right here, which we stop, and everyone can LOS there. I personally just like running in and everyone else following me, because I just LOS behind a different doorway and everything is already together instead of having the risk of me dying to bolts. At a lower key it's fine. At a higher key, you would usually have a warlock or something. You can put a gateway there, you can invis belt through if it works, and then you can pull everything back. As a DK, I can AMS the bolts. There's a lot of other ways. You can pick and choose depending on what key level it is. I just like, for these low key levels, I just run in there. Yes, there's an inspired mob in here. On a fortified, again, you would CC this, because having those rack souls and those curse of suppressions go off is not a fun time. People will die very quickly. But mostly, curse of suppression, very, very important interrupt here. Rack souls, also important, because if they do stacks and they stack too much on one target, and RNG willing, that target will most likely die very, very quickly. It's all RNG with the rack souls. Rack souls can be removed though, and curse of suppression can also be decursed, but if it obviously goes on the person that needs to decurse, they can't decurse themselves, so You want to be very careful of that. The only decursor we have here is our Elemental Shaman. So we have to be a bit careful here. If it does target the Elemental Shaman. So we're going to get the Sentinel down, and we're going to go to these 3 pack. Now the Overseer is annoying. It does a stacking debuff on the entire party over time that reduces your damage and healing done. I'm pretty sure it's healing as well. I know it reduces your damage done. And the longer it stays up, the worse it gets. And it goes to 10 stacks. You just want to kill it as soon as possible. Now remember, don't chain pull this into anything, because the stacks do drop after the mob is after you've left combat. So if you keep chain pulling, you're just going to have this debuff up for the entire duration, and it's just really annoying. So continue killing these. You got the oppressors there. Curse of Suppression should be interrupted. Now when this Overseer casts chains, you're going to, as a DK, you can AMS it to prevent the application, so you can just stay there. Rogues, I'm pretty sure, can also cloak it. You have other DKs can AMS it as well. You can use, technically it's a slow, so as long as you get rid of it, after the application, you can use Tiger's Lust as a monk after it, and prior to the application, you can use Hand of Freedom as a paladin as well. So there's a little things you can do to not have to run away and run back in. So that'll save you some time and keep your uptime on the mobs, because this Overseer is a little bit of annoying of a pack. So we're going to go through here. Bindings come in. I'm going to AMS it. As you can see, the binding's not on me. So now, as we go through, everyone's going to LOS here. I'm going to run in, and I'm going to grab these little rock-bound sprites. Now, these sprites are quite annoying, but they are very good for what's coming up next. So because we have an urn pool coming straight up, there's 8 sprites in here. This is a very easy way to get 8 stacks of the urn buff straight away, which will help you kill the next pack and the pack afterwards as well. Now they're going to do an ability called Animate Pebble. As long as you, the tank, are the only one that is in combat, they will only throw the pebble at you. Just use it a little defensive, make sure you survive, or LOS the first cast. If anyone else attacks, it can change targets, or if anyone comes out of LOS, it can change targets to them, so make sure everyone is fully LOS'd. After the first cast, you should be relatively safe for a few seconds. Bring them over to the urn, get the person with the Venthyr buff to open the urn, and then you can grab the Overseer pack as well, because these will die very quickly, and you want to straight away get some damage on this, because you have a minute to kill all these mobs and the next pack as well, to make sure that your buff stays up the entire time. Now, same stuff here. Curse of Suppression interrupts. Make sure you're AMSing the chain so you don't have to move anywhere. Now, we only have 23 seconds left on the buff. Now, as you see, we're going to run in. We're going to kill that Overseer. The debuff's going to drop. I'm going to run in here. Now, we only have 14 seconds left. The likelihood we're going to extend this is very, very slim. The optimal way and the preferred way of doing this is to have a little bit more damage, AoE preferably. Obviously, this is a carry run right now, so our damage isn't great. In your groups, hopefully your damage is a little bit better overall, and you'll be able to have a little bit more time on this cage, so you can fully extend it to the whole minute duration just before you get Woe in this pack. So Woe is going to be in this pack. You're going to get that Woe, and you're going to go straight to the second boss room and skip the mini boss. So we want to make sure we have blanket stuns here. I mass grip so the dark bolts don't one-shot someone. Make sure you're not hitting anyone with quaking. That hit someone. That wasn't good. Now we're going to interrupt Woe. Good ROP there. And we got Curse of Suppressions coming out. Good. Everything's good. We didn't get the extension though. As you can see on the top right, the 10 stack buff only has 40 seconds left. Ideally, this would have a minute left as you kill Woe. You would use Woe to go all the way through. Now, the point of this route is to go from that urn straight into the next urn here. Now, you would pull these mobs, and you would just stack everything on, and because you have 10 stacks of the buff, you would have 50% damage increase and 50% healing increase the entire time. So these guys would just absolutely melt. So I LOS here. Yes, the camera angle is absolutely outrageous, guys. I'm sorry. This is how I play the game. I don't really need to see what's going on. It's only a 21 for me, so it's fine. Humble brag, I know. But we're going to stay in that little corner there, and as you can see, everything's kind of grouped up because they've all LOS'd to me. Now we've got a quill feather just chilling there. I'm going to death grip that in, and I'm going to kill everything else. Now, previously, wardens in these mob packs would not count towards an earn buff. I'm not sure if they've fixed it so far. I'm pretty sure they have, but for the longest time, wardens never gave a stack on the buff. So everything else does though. So I'm gonna woe in here. Now I'm trying to look for the sentinel. This pull right here, these next few pulls, are all determined via where the sentinel spawns, because the sentinel has 3 different spawn locations on either side of the boss room. Now, if it spawns when you're doing a big pull, it's a very, very, very unfortunate circumstance, which you're probably just gonna have to deal with. On Fortified, or also like with Lusts, by the way, on Fortified. Actually, I'll talk about that at the end of the key, actually, because I'll do a segment of that. Over here, if the Sentinel spawns in a big pull, you want to be very wary because the Sentinel does slap pretty hard. Same with the Warden. So if you get both of them in the same pull, it is a bit unfortunate, but you're just going to have to try and roll your CDs and defensives and make sure you survive. If you get it later on, it's more beneficial because you can pull it with other things that aren't going to just hit you as hard. So we're going to pull all these. Now you want to make sure you're getting the Warden kick here. So we're going to make sure we get a ranged person to kick the Warden. Now, very important casts to work on here. You've got the Warden's Shackles. Now, if you have a Shaman in your group, a Shaman can take care of all the Shackles. If the Shackles go off, you need to make sure if you have a Monk or a Paladin in there, they can use Tiger's Lust or Hand of Freedom to get rid of it. Otherwise, the person is going to take a lot of damage over time, and it is not fun. Also, the Remnant of Fury, the Red Fury Remnant, is going to do an ability called Explosive Anima. If that goes off, it needs to be dispelled or decursed, because if it goes off and it's on someone, they will explode after a certain time and most likely die. So you need to make sure that is interrupted or decursed otherwise, because that is not fun. At this point in the dungeon, you do not want someone to die because you spawn back at the beginning of the first boss, and having to run back and invis past all the mobs we woed past is pretty much impossible. So this is a make or break. This is not very pug friendly if you end up wiping, but this is the most ideal route if you are pushing. Now this can affect any key. You can do this on any key level. This is not just for 20s. The route is the same throughout all keys. There is no difference between any key level except for the damage output and the health of the mobs. That is the only amplification. Everything else, like defensive usage, obviously you need to alter depending on what you can survive and what you can't, but you should be using defensives on things that you can or cannot survive, even if it's hitting you, or even if it kills you, you should be using a defensive. Oh, it doesn't kill you, sorry. Even if it doesn't kill you, you should be using defensive regardless. Just to get into the habit of it for later keys. As we can see here, we're going to have the Remnant and the Warden. We only have 17 seconds left on the cage. Now, we want to try and ideally kill these mobs. So we have 6 stacks right now. If we can get these 3 mobs down, we can get 9 stacks. That would be ideal. Unfortunately, I don't think we have enough damage to get them in time, but this is the route that you want to be looking at and making sure that you actually get the maximum amount of stacks before you head into the boss. Now, we only have 6 stacks. We end up not killing them in time. That's fine. We're going to use the rest of the stacks to get as many mobs as we can, pull the Sentinel that's behind us here, and we're just going to kill all these mobs together. Now, ideally, like I said before, you would have 10 stacks right now into the boss, the second boss, and you would usually have Lust up at this point. We're going a little bit quick. So, you'd have Lust, you'd have 10 stacks, this boss will melt in about a minute or 2. It'll just evaporate. You'll be fine. So this boss is going to do 2 abilities, Castigate and Coalesce Manifestation. So Castigate is that big circle that you see. You need to make sure you're moving outside of the group because anyone in the circle will be taking damage over time, and you need to make sure you pop a defensive. Now you want to make sure you don't overlap your defensive with a defensive from the healer or a big cooldown from the healer, because having those Castigates not be defensive or not be spot healed by the healer is very bad in a high tyrannical, and you will most likely die. Hunters can feign death it. You can pre-AMS it as a DK. You can spell reflect it as a warrior. You can bubble it. You can spell warding it, I'm pretty sure. There's a bunch of shit you can do. So make sure you know what you're doing. And you can cloak it as well. There's heaps of stuff you can do. With the manifestation, every single fight adds over boss. Every time. Always kill the ad over the boss. Because the boss ain't going anywhere. The ad is the one that's going to be giving you trouble because there's an extra thing you need to worry about. Kill the ad, then the boss. Very simple. Ad's going to do pulsing damage over time to everyone. Make sure it's dead. The deadly combination is when the ad and the castigate come out at the same time and you have double amplifying damage over time. The healer is going to be shitting bricks. You need to make sure that the shit is dying quick. Now we get here to make sure that the healer can get his mana back. As you can see, the healer is half mana right now below my my unit frame. Is going to pop off. It's going to help us heal through this castigate and coalesce manifestation duo right now. So as you can see, castigate's coming up in 2 seconds. Manifestation's still up. Is doing its work. Good. Manifestation's about to die. Perfect. Gets destroyed. That's what we want to see. And you just want to, when the manifestation dies, it puts a pool of red on the ground. You just start walking yourself back. Very simple boss mechanic. And now you've got the last mechanic, which is the big red beams going left to right. As you can see, I got hit by that. Now what that does is if you get hit by it, it'll do a small little bit of damage to you and it'll apply a haste debuff, which is not fun for anyone. A lot of classes love haste. If you get a haste debuff, you're just going to feel shit. It's going to feel slow, it's going to feel sluggish. It can be dispelled, but you'd rather not get hit by it. You just go left and right, just follow the leader, and you should be sweet. Now the boss will die eventually. Good, good, good. Boss is dead. Okay. Second boss, done. We're looking pretty smooth right now. No deaths. DPS is a little bit low, but we're doing what we can. Again, this is a carry run, not a proper run with 5 geared people, so we will take it into account. Now we're going to run backwards this time. We're going to go back and re-clear what we've run past with Woe. The whole point of this run is to get 74.7% on the dot before leaving this area. That is how much you need exactly before going to the third boss room. Now, what that entails is pulling everything in the second boss area, except for the 3 little spike claws in the cage next to the second boss. I'm sure people know what I'm talking about. Those are the only ones you don't pull. You pull every single other mob in this second boss room, except for the 3 spike claws. Or the three little jumpy claw guys. So we're going to keep going, we're going to keep moving. Now this is just me pulling everything. Now I'm going to pull the next part onto the next urn. I'm doing a massive pull here. Urn's going to pop over. We're just going to pull everything. Now Chamber Sentinel is going to cast a ability which gives it something that can be removed by a spell steal or a purge. I think it gives it armor, so you want to make sure you get rid of it because it's just gonna be tankier, pretty much. But if you give it to, if you spell steal it as a mage, you get the ability as well, and if you just get rid of it, you can just purge it. You don't have to worry about kicking it too much. It's called Stone Skin. Everything else is the same. You want to make sure your priorities are the Warden's Shackles and the Explosive Anima from the Red Boys. Now, as we kill these, we get Cage is still active. We try to kill everything. We don't manage to get the Warden in time. We have 5 stacks that we can kill the rest of these mobs with. And then the rest of it is just running through and killing everything else. Now you got Frenzied Ghouls. That's what they're called. So we get the Frenzied Ghouls, the Quill Feather here, and the Research Scribe. We're just going to pull everything here, including these 2 here. Now, these ghouls hurt a lot on the tanks, by the way. So if you aren't comfortable with tanking them, you can just slowly kite them. They don't go anywhere. Just get people to AoE them down. Don't try and stand in there and macho up and, you know, die because you think you can survive. If you need to kite. Besides that, though, those are about it. Now we're gonna run down here. 74.7, as you can see on the right hand side. Sorry, 74.7 is the percentage. Somebody just died there, actually. Okay, so we need 74.7. Apparently we got a few more over there from something. Must have pulled something extra later on. That's a bit weird. but we're going to pull all 5 of these together. Now, again, on a high Tyran, on a high fortified, if it's inspiring, don't do this. You have an inspiring in there, everything's going to be casting and free casting. It's not going to end well. Because, again, this is a 21 and it's a tyrannical, these fort mobs are not amplified as much, so we can kind of just take the brunt force of the cast and not worry about it too much. So I'm going to kill all these. Now, there is a little trick that you can do with the 3rd boss, if you want. As a hunter, or a rogue, or a mage, those are the 3 classes that can invis after combat, you can pull the boss, invis, no one else attack, and it'll spawn the encrypted mobs. You can then get a woe while waiting for the boss to respawn, get a woe, get the buff for woe, and then re-pull the boss for another set of encrypted. Now you can get a woe and an Now that will help you alleviate some pressure from the healer for the damage that's coming out on this boss, because this is a very healing intensive fight for the first minute because of the woe's length of duration. The duration of the buff. Now, afterwards, it's going to go back to being spicy, but at least it alleviates a little bit of pressure. If you want to do that, go for it if you have time and you want to be safe, but if you don't have time and you just want to do it, just do it. You need to just do the mechanics and the boss should just fall over. Now, the mechanics of this boss are fairly simple. You first got the tank buster mechanic, which is iron spikes. Just make sure you use a defensive on it. I use a rune tap, but I immediately get purged. Not fun. That was a bad thing of me because I didn't have my rune weapon up by the time I went into the boss. So rune weapon is the bread and butter of DK, everyone knows that. You don't have it, not fun. Now, before we go this, we got Rite of Suppression. Now, you've got these yellow orbs that spawn on the ground. Each orb gives you a 20% damage reduction. As a DPS or a healer, you need 3 to 4 minimum without a defensive. 3 to 4 minimum each. There is a total of 15 that spawn, I'm pretty sure, which means every person can get 3 to 4, including the tank, but the tank should only need to get either 0 to 2. No more than 2. You should be able to defensive each one without needing to pick up any more than 1. I can AMS one as well, which completely negates the effect because it's a magic damage ability. So you want to make sure that you pick up the orbs and then go into the boss. Don't try and do damage to the boss in this phase without picking up the orbs, otherwise you just die immediately. You have other ways of dealing with this as well. If you're on communications and you have someone with a immunity, like a bubble or a turtle or an ice block or something like that, get them to use that immunity before the cast goes off and get everyone else to grab a few extra orbs to make sure everyone is safe. That is another way to deal with this boss. So as you can see, we're going to pick these up. I'm going to grab 2 because they're right next to me. Our shaman doesn't grab enough. Anks anyway, which is fine. Now, Endless Torment's going to come out. This is the ability that gets a lot of people. Now, these swirls, you have to avoid it, because if you get hit by them, they come out pretty quickly. They will put a debuff on you, it'll tick a lot, and it's extra healing for the healer that doesn't need to happen. You need to be very careful. Mechanics over DPS at this point, guys. I cannot stress that enough. It happens everywhere. Mechanics over DPS. Do not try and pass. Do not try and be the hero and do more damage than everyone else. Just do the mechanics. If you can't do the mechanics and you're dying to this kind of stuff, you need to focus on one thing rather than doing both and not being good at either. That is the bread and butter and the main issue of why people fail keys. Not because their DPS isn't enough, it's because people die to mechanics and don't do them properly. Like that. Perfect example. I just stood in the without doing anything. But I did IBF out of it. Luckily enough, I am the tank. I can take mechanics to the face and not worry about it. Probably why I play the tank. Isn't that right, tanks out there? Now, DPS are going to have a harder job because if they get hit by any mechanics, it's lights out really quickly. Not a fun time. So, that is pretty much the boss fight. Get the orbs when you need to, dodge the swirls, use your defensives on the tank buster mechanic as a tank. GG, well played. Easy key. Now, at this point, there should be a lust going off, but because we cleared it so quickly, there is no lust available, actually. So I think we're just going to save the lust for the last boss, I'm not sure. So as we go through the boss, this boss takes quite a while, because we just don't have the single target. As you can see, our single target damage is quite low. Our healer and our Ellie Shaman, Mistweaver Monk and Ellie Shaman both are pretty much the lowest single target damaging of their class, of their respective roles. Ellie Shaman's single target is absolutely bin, and Mistweaver Monk's damage is just Mistweaver Monk's damage. Need I say more? Now, as we get to the end of the boss fight, the lust is just about to come up, but the boss is already dead, so why bother with that? So we're just gonna, I think, collectively say we're gonna save it for the last boss. There's no point in not saving it for the last boss. Now we're gonna grab the Essence of Zrali. Now this is the tank's job to place the shield down. This is for the last boss and the Gauntlet. Now, small trick you can use with this shield. It removes debuffs. So this is great for necrotic weeks. If you place it down when you don't need it for Gloom Squall, you can remove your necrotic stacks with this tanks. Make sure you do it. And also for these traps that drop from the Hunt Masters in this pack and the Hunt Masters at the end before the last boss. You can drop it down and soak the orbs because it gives you a massive damage reduction. You might as well soak the traps instead of letting a melee walk in there unaware and just die. You don't want people dying like that. And trust me, they will die. They will run in there and they will do it. You want to make sure that things are easier for the rest of your group and to prevent messes like that from happening. So as we do this, we're going to pull this, grab these 4, kill them all, and once they're dead, we're going to invis this 3-pack. You should never, ever, ever want to do these 3 mobs, because these 3 mobs are honestly probably the 3 worst single mobs in the entire dungeon in one collective group. So this is asking for you to skip it. So you're going to invis pot or you're going to invis belt through it. Now there is a way to use a warlock gate. It is a little bit sus, and I'm not sure if it works every time. I haven't tested it enough to make sure, so I don't want to put it in this video. But we're just going to invis through just to be safe. Everyone's going to go through. We're going to come out the other side, and we're going to pull the first part of the Gauntlet. Now, as soon as you go past this area here, this little line here, is where the Gauntlet starts. So if you are trying to wait for someone, do not go past this line here. Otherwise, the Gauntlet's going to start, and things are going to get real bad, because you will be in combat forever. You will not be able to drop combat until you finish the entire Gauntlet. If you start off bad, key's pretty much over, because you won't be able to invis in combat once you die. So you want to make sure you have B-reses at this point. We have 2 available right now, so we're going to go in, grab the boss. I'm going to pull, getting a little bit slapped here because I have not got Room Weapon up. Now I do, so now we're all good. Mass grip everything together, put my shackle out, start blasting. Now we get perfect. Now here we want to make sure we're interrupting Dark Bolts. Dark Bolts are what's going to randomly kill people. You want to make sure that they are being killed and interrupted immediately. I'm going to AMS the Urslam. You can AMS the Urslam guys or Icebound Fortitude them as your DK. Make sure you can do it if you want to stay still and let people just blast and use the DPS. Now, Gloom Squall is the ability where you need to have everyone in the same bubble that you push down with your extra action button. That is the one that you need people to be in. This is the same ability that happens at the end of the Gauntlet when you actually kill the boss. So you need to make sure that you are practicing this during the Gauntlet so you know what to do during the boss fight at the end. Gargans are just going to spawn periodically throughout the Gauntlet. Nothing you can do there except for just pulling them together. Now we're going to try and get the boss down to 90%. So every 10%, the boss is going to move to the next section of the Gauntlet. Once you get to 90%, we're going to move over. We've got a bunch of sprites, cadets, and acolytes in the next pulls. And we have an urn right here. So what we're going to do, or a lantern. We're going to go to the lantern, pop the lantern, get 10 stacks, wait for the first Gloom Squall. Ideally, put your extra action button down, and then pull the acolytes. Now these acolytes need to be LOS'd. Now I'm just going crazy here, so I'm just pulling them straight away. Making sure that everyone is LOS'd. Otherwise the Dark Bolts are just going to all hit the same person. And trust me, they do hit the same person all the time. Way too many times actually. And they're just going to one-shot them. So you need to make sure that the Dark Bolts are interrupted and they're killed immediately. Gloomswell's going to go off again. Now this specific scenario is kind of debated. Now, there are ways that you can avoid this by using the quaking timer on the top left to make sure that you pull the boss at the right time, so then the timers kind of don't sync up, I guess. But if you ever have a situation where you're quaking at the same time as you have the shield in, it is much safer to stay in the shield and quake each other because of the 60% DR that you get. I'm pretty sure it's 60%. Don't quote me on that. Rather than just running out. Because if you run out, you're 100% dead. If you go in together, you're not going to be dead at all. Because the 60% DR is going to prevent you from dying. And it'll just save your life. So don't be scared if you all get quaking and you're in the shield. If you're in the shield, stay in the shield. That's pretty much the rule there. So we're going to go through, continue with the Gauntlet. We have 10 stacks now. And we're just going to keep moving. Now we're going to get here. These are very simple mobs to deal with. Just the same stuff that you dealt with before. To get General Kaal to 70% or 60%? No, 70%, and then General Kaal's gonna go all the way to the end. Now, this group here is 2 skirmishers and then a sentinel. Sentinel obviously will put a bleed on you. You can remove that with the shield extra action button, and the skirmishers are just gonna spawn weapons. These are the same mobs that happened at the first pull of the entire dungeon. So you just wanna make sure the weapons aren't hitting anyone. Aggros might be a little bit of an issue if someone's in the middle of popping their cooldowns. Now we're going to finish that off. We have 97.8%. Now should be a little bit less, but we got a little bit more earlier on. I'm still not sure how that happened. So now we've got 2 Huntmasters and a bunch of Gargans. Again, you have your extra action button. You can use it to clear the traps. You want to kill these off, and then we're going to go into the boss. Now as we kill these, we have 100% already. Beautiful. We're going to go straight into the boss. Now the boss, this boss, has killed a lot of people in my runs. And it is a little bit sketchy because there's a lot of things to dodge here. Now, ideally as the tank, you want to be tanking the boss up near where you entered the room. Because if you're close to the edge of one of the edges, it gives the ranged DPS, and everyone else actually, a lot more room to just run around and dodge this Wicked Rush ability. Now, if you've ever done this boss fight, Wicked Rush is dodgeable every single time. Now, you need to make sure that you're not standing on top of each other or someone else, otherwise the bleed will affect anyone hit by it in that small radius. So all you really need to do is just run in a big circle. And choose an area, run in a big circle, and you won't get hit. As long as the boss is charging at you and you're running away at the same time, you won't get hit. You can use a blink if you want to, you can disengage, you can fell rush, there's a bunch of things you can do. You can shadow step as well. Just gotta make sure you time it right, otherwise you're gonna get the bleed. Now, the worst combination here is getting the Wicked Rush at the same time as the lines coming out in the middle of the room, or covering the room. Now, the lines coming out will happen in 3 different sections. As you can see here. So it's going this side, the left side, and then it's going to go into the middle, and then it's going to go into the right. Now, what you need to do is position yourself just on the edge of the first one that's coming off, and then immediately duck into where that first one finished. So you're safe. So then we're here, now we're ducking into the safe one, and now you're safe the entire time. Very easy mechanic, right? It just gets a little bit scary when you have the Wicked Rush on you as well. Now you got Gloom Squall coming up in 3 seconds. He's going to go to one of the sides of this square platform, and he's going to cast Gloom Squall. You need to go near the boss, place your extra action button down, and everyone needs to be in it. Otherwise, you get absolutely yeeted off the platform, and you will most likely die. If you have something to come back on it, again, disengage, fell rush, wild charge, blink, anything like that, you can come back onto the platform. Demon Hunters have it the easiest. They can just double jump and glide back onto the platform. But yeah, you can use that if you do miss it, which shouldn't be the case. Everyone should be ready for this. Gloom Swell's going to come down. We're going to get protected. Nice and easy. And that's pretty much the fight. It's just those 3 main abilities. Wicked Rush, the lines on the floor, and then Gloom Swell. That's about it. Our healer gets absolutely slapped there because he gets let's see what happens here. So, as you can see, our healer has the Wicked Rush on him. He's going to go into this corner here. Now, what I know is exactly going to happen is he's going to get the Wicked Rush and he's going to run into this middle area because he's trying to dodge it. Not knowing that this is about to go off at the same time. He's going to run in, he jumps in, and boom. Gets slapped by both of them. Not the best move, but in that scenario, it's unfortunate. Things happen. It is what it is, as people like to say. So we're going to continue with this. The boss finishes at 50.5% because this boss ends up in the Castle Nathria raid later on with the Stone Legion Generals, which is a very nice fight. I'm sure a lot of you have PTSD from that fight. As you can see, we just repeat, rinse, repeat, all the way down to 50.5%. And that is when the boss will finally finish, and we will complete the key. This is a relatively easy 2 chest. It was quite alright. I was proud of the guys for 2 chesting it, regardless of the damage output we had in the group, but it was pretty good. I was a bit low on the damage, only 12.2k. I could definitely do a lot more. We had to be a little bit cautious, I guess, from inspiring. So it wasn't great. Wasn't a great week to do a SD. I'll tell you that. Now, as I said halfway through the key, I was going to explain to you guys lust points. So we're going to go back to the start of the key, and I'm going to explain where you're going to be lusting. So on Tyrannical, everyone knows you're going to be lusting on every boss pretty much. That's ideal. You're going to lust on every boss. Now with Fortified, what you're going to do is Fortified, you're going to lust the first pull. So this pull right here, you're going to bring it to the urn, stack everything up, and then you're going to lust. Your second lust is going to be either on the second boss if you have it up, or if it's off cooldown and you are getting a really bad pull and you're trying to extend your urn buff, you would do this pull here that I'm doing right now. This big pull onto the next urn, you would lust this. Not only is this going to help you survive if there's way too much going on, this is also going to ensure, hopefully, that you extend your 10 stack urn buff into another 10 stack urn buff. And you'll be able to clear the rest of the area very easily. Remember, this is fortified lusts. Tyrannical lusts, you're going on every boss. Fortified lusts, you're doing it on the first pull of the dungeon, you're doing it on this pull most likely, and then you're going to be doing it on either the double pack on the first part of the Gauntlet, or you're going to save it for the last boss, depending on how you guys are feeling about bosses and which pack is, a bit scary for you guys as a group. That's all circumstantial and how you guys play the game. But besides that, that's about it. That's Sanguine Depths. It's a really good route. Shout out to Dorky on Twitch. He's the one that I found this route from. Really, really smart routing and perfect percent as well. It should be 100% on the dot as long as you do it correctly. I still don't know where that random 2% came from when we were jumping down to the third boss area. I'll have to check back on that, but it should be 74.7% before you leave to go to the third boss, and then you skip the 3-pack at the end of the hallway. And that's it. You just clear everything else and you should be sweet. But thank you very much for watching, everybody. Please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It helps the channel greatly to continue rising and pushing into new, different types of videos. We will continue the series on dungeon guides in the next few days with The Other Side as the next one. I know a lot of people don't like that dungeon. I'm going to show you how to do it properly and how you can utilize the encrypteds to make sure things are a lot easier for you later down the track. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Peace out, stay safe, and till next time.